Seems so much we have lost as we look down the road where all the prodigals have walked. One by one the enemies whisper lies and let them off as slaves. But we know that you are God, yours is a victory. We know there is more to come.
But no, I'm so glad to be here, and it's just an honor to be here with the congregation and our community here. So I'm really happy with that. Let's say, you guys like my background? I did that this morning. I thought it was kind of cool. So the title of my message today is called Homerama. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Homerama or whatnot, but the last couple of weeks we've been talking about our unfinished business and how God is keeping us on track to find our completed mark, right? So like I said, Homerama is a group of giant houses being built in different communities around our city and several around the country and different things like that. But they're huge houses, and it's a big deal for the people obviously who are buying the houses, communities involved with Homerama, but also the general contractors kind of doing the labor and all that stuff. So I looked it up because I was curious. The Journal News stated in 2017 that the average start price for one of these homes is $800,000. Now I've done a fair share of work myself, but nothing in comparison to $800,000 worth of work. But just take a look at these, a couple of these homes. If you want to go through the slide for me. I mean, just beautiful, beautiful home. You can keep going. There's just a couple of slides. Just giant houses with tons of detail and way more money than I'll ever make. But they're just, I don't know about you, but since I've gotten into the construction and painting business and stuff like that, I've just loved just detail, attention to detail. And that's what these houses are. They're incredible pieces of work, of craftsmanship, and like I said, the attention to detail, and hopefully the quality. If you're paying $800,000 for a house, hopefully the quality of your house is going to be good. So, but that's what the customers are looking for. They're looking for the high-end attention to detail, everything that's going to stand out to people whoever walks into the room. But like I said, when people buy into the Homerama houses, they know what they're getting on one condition. It takes time, right? It takes time. On average, it takes about 6 months for one of those houses to be put up. And hopefully, if it's any sooner than that you guys are there looking at the kind of work that's being done, because that's a lot of work. Like I said, with these type of developments, you usually see a community that springs up around it, right? Actually, we have one coming up right down the street from my parents' house. It's called Carriage Hill. And with these developments comes restaurants, comes stores, comes golf courses, and other features for families to kind of focus around, almost build around that so they don't have to go anywhere, right? Because that's the idea. You're building a community where people can get to know each other and do different things close to home. Because you're paying $800,000, I'm sure they have money to go out and do things, but maybe not, so they got to stay close. But let me pray, and then we'll get into the rest of our stuff. Father God, we come to you today. I thank you so much just for this opportunity to bring your word. Thank you so much just for what you were giving me over the last couple of weeks, and being able to finalize last night. I was getting excited as I was writing it down on my computer. Lord, I just pray that you will continue to work in our hearts, to continue to take the shovel into our soil and break it up, and use the sickle to harvest what's going on in our lives. Lord, I pray that we'll be patient and let you continue to work in our lives and to see the completed mark at the end. In your name I pray. Amen. Now, I want you guys to think, you can go to the next one. I want you guys to think of Homerama in a spiritual sense, almost as like our spiritual blueprint. Picture God being the general contractor, right? God is kind of, he's setting everything up. He's creating the blueprints for our lives, for our hearts, and all that. And the high-end homes being our hearts, right? So in this picture you see a guy walking around, checking out the frame, checking out all the little details, and that's God. And we're the actual product being put up at this time. You can go to the next one. As you see, the last couple of weeks, Dad finished up last week, where we talked about excavation and pouring the foundation, the footers, and all the details, and finishing on time. And that's kind of how we are as God's children. God is you can go to the next one. God is the ultimate craftsman, right? He has handcrafted every single one of us in in our mother's womb, and before that, our mother's womb, right? So, before we were ever thought into existence, God already knew and was crafting our blueprint for our lives and who we are. Like I said, think back in your own lives as someone who has had a massive spiritual impact on your life. For me, it was my football coach, my strength and conditioning coach at Cincinnati Christian. His name was Tom Cadenkamp. The man always smelled like coffee, right? So every time he got up to him, and he liked to be really close to you. So you're working out, and he'd be breathing on your face, and all you would smell is coffee. So I don't like coffee at this point, but he loved it. But he was awesome. I had the aspirations to go play in college and all that type of stuff. So when I transferred to Cincinnati Christian my sophomore year, he was right on it right away. He took me and he was like, "Do you really want to do this?" Because he played for Notre Dame, he played with Joe Montana and all that type of stuff. So he knew what it took to get to that next level. And he was like, every day he was like, "Do you really want this?" I said, "Yes, absolutely, I want this." So he would, on top of our daily workout sessions and schedules and all that stuff, he would work me out afterwards and constantly just paying attention to every detail. If I didn't do it right, it didn't count. So, you'd be at the last rep or the last set and stuff like that, and every part of your body would be like crying. He literally said, verbatim, he's like, "I'm going to make you crawl out of this weight room." And he did, right? I would hurt so bad, he made me literally have to crawl out of the weight room. You're like, why would you ever put yourself through that? I don't know, but I enjoyed it, right? So, but he would focus on every detail of our bodies, because if you guys have ever played a physical sport, it's taxing over the season. It's really, really difficult on your body. But he knew that for me to be able to hold up throughout the season, that I had to work hard. But on top of that, he made sure every lesson, it didn't matter if we had 10 minutes to work out or we had 2 days to work out. He always started every lesson with a devotional. And the way that he was able to present stuff and speak to us spiritually, it was incredible. And at the time, I really wasn't focused on God. I didn't really have much of a relationship with God at all. But whenever I went to go talk to Coach K, he always had a way to draw me in. He always had a way to draw me in, and I give him credit for kind of keeping me focused, keeping me interested. Because at the time, I was all about football. But his life wasn't always perfect. It took time, and over time, God has given him the wisdom and the platform to save many a young man's life. I can attest to you on that so many kids that came up through our football program and beyond, because he trained in other places, he was able to impact. He used that platform of people wanting to work out physically to work them out spiritually, and I love that. If you want to go to the next one. I didn't have a scripture reading because I kind of wanted to do it myself. But the scripture kind of for today is in Psalm 11, 5 through 7. And I've taken this through the Message. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. But I took this off the Message Bible. It says, "He tests the good and the bad alike. God's business is putting things right. He loves getting the line straight, setting us straight. Once we're standing tall, we can look him straight in the eye." So I want you guys to focus on if you want to go to the next one, I want you guys to focus on this part down here. God's business is putting things right. He loves getting the line straight. Now, like I said, I'm a painter, right? And my job is to paint straight lines. So when I was reading this, it blew my mind, right? So, like I said, my goal and obligation is to getting the line straight as possible. And as I was preparing for this, I was like, I didn't really know what verse I wanted to do. So I was kind of looking different things up, and I heard a couple of devotionals and that type of stuff. And then I saw on Facebook, one of my friends posted a saying, and it had this verse under it. It didn't say what the verse was, so I looked it up, and I saw this, like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. So my job is to make sure that every element in the room contrasts each other, but exemplifies the details of everything. And I know that probably sounds crazy, but I'm kind of a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to those different things, because I want everything to look as best as possible. To my abilities. So, you have your ceiling contrasting your walls, you have your walls contrasting your trim, and each of those different elements of the room has a different paint that you have to put on it to make sure that it looks right. Some people use tape, some people don't, but it doesn't matter. The biggest thing is that each element in the room being done has to complement each other. It's like a puzzle, right? Each piece has to be put together correctly for it to look right. Because if you put, semi-gloss, some people do, but semi-gloss on a ceiling, and flat on a trim, and when trim is getting scuffed up all the time, it's not going to last. It's not going to last very long. So, as a company, the only way that we can grow is by doing our job correctly. It's the only way to grow as a community is to bring in the best of the best contractors. So with these Homerama homes, the $800,000 homes, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Indian Hill, but they have like $4 million homes, which is crazy. They're not just bringing in any body from on the side of Home Depot, like, hey man, can you come build a $4 million home? No, they're getting the best of people who have probably been to school, who have all the experience and the tools and all that stuff. They have the best of the best, whose attention to detail is absolutely superb. I don't know if you guys have ever been through one of those homes, but it's really fun. Like I said, I'll never have it myself, but it's really fun to look at. So, but from there, the way that the community grows is by word of mouth, right? Same with our company. When we do a good job, word of mouth will spread itself. We don't really have to do the work on the marketing sense, because our job kind of speaks for itself. But as a Christian community, the only way we grow is by allowing the best of the best, which is God, come in and construct the inner workings of our hearts and lining them up straight. So, going back into this, it's setting, when we do that, God is setting us up straight. All right, so we're standing tall, we can look Him straight in the eye. That is the only way. I don't know if you guys have ever constructed a wall, but if it's not straight and it's leaning over, most likely it's not going to work very well. But that's the way it's in our spiritual lives. When God is constructing us, He puts us up straight. He's proud to look at us, and we can look Him back, knowing and reassuring that we're not going to fall, that we're going to be secured to the foundation, right? So when one house is built by the ultimate builder, which is God, the word spreads and the community is slowly built. That community's reputation grows to the point where that's the place where people want to be, right? I don't know how many of you guys have ever built a house, like actually had somebody build it or build it yourself. Anybody? All right, cool. So the word spreads. As you start building into a community, the word spreads. Where one house is built, a community will follow. But we have to say within ourselves that we will allow God to work in us and build that Homerama in our hearts, where each element complements each other. So where our love complements our joy, where our joy complements our peace, where our peace complements our selflessness, and so on. If you want to go to the next one. Right, so take a look at these pictures. Each one is kind of a community of houses. You can keep going. Keep going. So each one kind of has the same build, right? But each one, there you go. Each one is a little different. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with our hearts, right? When one is sold, you can stop. He's getting ahead of me. I can't keep up. When one house was put up and sold, someone had to come along and say, "Oh my gosh!" You go back to the really bright houses. There you go. Somebody came along and was like, "Oh my gosh, I love this house. Who built this for you? How much did it cost? Who do I call?" All those different things. And they're going around like, "Man, look at those vaulted ceilings. Look at the wine cellar. Look at the marble floors. Look at the tiled, the floor to tile ceiling, floor to ceiling tiles, and all those different things where those details grab people's attention, and so much to the point where they're like, I want one of those." And they have stuff set back. They have the 401ks, and they're like, okay, here's a down payment, and then in 6 months, boom, they have a house, right? Perfect. But it keeps going on and on, where somebody else comes into their house and like, oh my gosh, look at the 5-car garage, look at that indoor pool inside of the house. It's crazy what some of these houses are that they hold. But the biggest thing is that people continue to come in and like, man, I want that house. And then 6 years go by, and now you can go to the next one. Now you have a big community, and then next thing you know, You can go to the next one. You're in a gated community, right? That's a plus. But our spiritual lives are much the same. Where when one of us allows God to work in our hearts to the point where somebody comes around like, oh my gosh, look at your heart, it's beautiful, right? Look at your heart, it's beautiful. I want that. And then they go and they look at the details like, man, look at all the peace that you have, and the joy that you have, and the love that you have, and the selflessness that you have. I want that. Who do I call? How much does it cost? It's free. Oh my gosh, I have that. So it keeps going on, and all they have to do is understand that what Jesus did for them on the cross, right? That it's free. And then they can move in the next day. There's no waiting period. They can move in right there. The house is already ready for them. And then on top of that, right, we all know that we get some pretty cool stuff in return of our investment, right? They're like, man, I get a mansion. I can move in quick. Bam! Beat me up, Scotty, right? That's the next one. So now someone sees what you have and they want the same thing. And next thing you know, you go to the next one. Next thing you know, this is the single person building their lives, letting God construct something in their hearts. And the next thing you know, you have multiple people praying. You have multiple people working together and building a community. And then the next one, you have a whole congregation and community working together. And next thing you know, when you're all together, you're in a gated community yourself. So I don't know if you guys see what I did there, but I thought that was pretty cool. But that's the way that it works. When one person allows for God to work in their heart, somebody else sees that and like, man, I want that. And then other people are like, man, look at that community. I want to be a part of that. And they come into it. It's much like our church. When we allow God to work inside of ourselves, we end up building a community where people want to come. And then obviously the end goal is that gated community in heaven. When our communities are being sprung up, when individuals allow for God to work inside their lives, it brings energy back to the church. I think that's something for myself. I think we miss that. We miss the energy of coming into church and being excited. We direct people to God, fixing our eyes to the perfecter of our faith, where God now becomes, the diversion from the outside world. Where our eyes are so fixed on Him that we're not worried about everything else going on around us. Go back and think of your spiritual hero, right? And just they didn't just get to where they were right away. It takes time. And I know many of you guys who have been a Christian for a long time, it takes time. You didn't start right away just being and knowing the Bible to and fro, or knowing how to pray, or knowing how to talk to people about your faith. It takes time. And like a well-built house, you can't rush the builder. It takes time to perfect each and every detail. You want to go to the next one?
That is it.
Oh, that's it. All right, my bad. So, I knew that. But it's waiting. Waiting is essential. Hannah had to wait years for God to give her the child that she had so desired. Abraham had to wait for God to fulfill His promise. The Jewish nation had to wait thousands of years for the Messiah to come. Like I said, Moses had to wait as well for God to reveal His purpose for his life. Because if we rush the builder, or if we rush to see the blueprints that God is creating for us, or if we just rush to have a blueprint that's not perfected, we get things that happen, like when Abraham rushed and got Ishmael, right? When Sarah and Abraham rushed and they weren't waiting on God's full promise, they got Ishmael, and it caused problems. Where Moses, got in a rush and was trying to please the Israelites rather than waiting on God to do His thing, he wasn't able to reach the promised land. And then as well as the Jews, they didn't see that the blueprint that they were looking for wasn't the one that God had for them. So they rushed it and they rejected Christ. So many times, like I said, we rely on our limited power to try and put a DIY patch, right, do-it-yourself patch, or what I like to see is a Google Pinterest post, right, where like, oh my gosh, I want this, I could do that, right, and we try to put those on the reoccurring issues of our lives. We try to DIY problem solvers to fix a hole, instead of just proceeding with the professional guaranteed infinite power of God. We rely on our limited power, where God has infinite power to fix all of our issues. And the solution is going to be more expensive, right? I'm sure many of you guys have had this experience when you try to fix something yourself because you're like, I'm on a budget, I can't really afford that, I need to do it now. But what happens? You end up calling a professional anyways because either one, you made it worse, or you made it worse, so just something happens, and it's going to cost more, right? It's going to hurt a little bit more, but we can rest easy knowing that the solution is solved. That we know that the issue is going to be fixed and monitored for the full existence of our structure. It's the same thing with our spiritual lives. In today's society, we are pressured to grasp everything quickly and now. Right? We have to have everything now. For the home buyers, it's I need it to be done now. I need this to be fixed. I need you guys out of my house. All these different things. Or we have the pressure of our friends, of our surrounding community to push us like, hey, your house is behind. This should have been done already. All these different things. But I'm trying to figure out where I was at. With us putting our faith in builders, right? Not the ultimate builder, but builders to fix our problem as cheap as possible, to get it done and get the momentary job done for now. But over the long haul, what happens? That solution crumbles, right? That solution, the house is going to fall apart. Think of Noah. Think of how humiliating that had to be for Noah for God to say, hey, I need you to build an ark because it's going to flood. And, at that time, not one single drop of precipitation had fallen at the time from the sky, right? It's coming up from the ground, but it never fell from the sky. And so everybody around him was mocking him day after day after day after day. And I can't imagine how hard it was for him to go in and day out just to keep working on that. Because if it was me, I'd be like, God, where is this rain? Well, why am I doing this when it makes no sense? Like I said, it can be humiliating sometimes for us to go against the grain of society and trust in God that your blueprint is being completed on time, even if things don't look the way that you had thought when you initially signed that contract with God. Right? When we give our lives to God, it's a contract. We are not getting out of it. Not that we should want to get out of it, but it's a binding contract. And when we look at it, we're like, oh yes, my life is going to be perfect now. But sometimes as Christians, we know that doesn't happen. So we're looking at like, God, this blueprint doesn't look like the way that I wanted it to. Like I said, I wanted to play football. I wanted to go out and I wanted to go play, in the pros and all that type of stuff. Obviously that didn't happen. But, it looked different than my blueprint. But I'm glad that I'm here because if I were to continue to play in college because I had some offers and stuff, I don't think I would have been able to walk because I can barely walk now. Right? So, you have to trust that God is taking care of every single detail of your faith and your heart for the build that will be leaving people speechless. Right? So I don't know if you've ever seen somebody like a Billy Graham. People adore Billy Graham because and admire Billy Graham because he was so authentic in his faith. He was so focused on the one thing and he touched so many different lives. And it left people speechless because in the tough times, when other people's houses are crumbling, we can stand resting assured as a community built on and built by the solid rock that we aren't going anywhere. Just like Noah, it's stupid to everyone around us until it works, right? It's stupid until it works. They'll be laughing at us until they start drowning because they'll be wanting them on our boat because we built it on the solid rock. I say this to you guys today, if we rush the plans of God for our lives, our faith, trying to put the stuff into our house that was never meant to be in our house, that our house was never meant to sustain, we'll never make it as a stand-up community. And I'm saying this as a church. We'll never make it as a Homerama church. Not where we're building an $800,000 mega steeple or anything like that, but a place where people want to be, where the attention to detail in all of our hearts is exactly the way that God has put on His blueprint. That's when we'll become a Homerama church. Not focused on throwing up as many houses out here in the church and out there in the community, but how we're putting up churches. When we go into our community, how are we interacting with the people out there, like you said, with a tent city, with a mission, with different things that were going on with Brian Smith's family, how are we interacting with them? Even in our own church, how are we interacting within our Sunday schools, within our classes, with just in our relationships in general? How are we building up and perfecting those details in our hearts, in our church? Just like a house, if we don't address the recurring issues of our house, that our houses are dealing with, and we ignore them, and we're ignoring the issues in our community, we will never be able to see neighbors start coming into our community. We as a church have to continue to let God be the builder and completing the blueprint of this community, where we can be the light and the beacon of Hamilton, the city of Hamilton, right? Because what's our motto? A church with a hill, with Hamilton on our hearts. But we'll never be able to fully grasp that and complete that if we don't allow God to continue to work in our hearts. And it was really cool how God kind of worked through this last couple series with Unfinished. I was driving down to go to a job to, I think it was around Kings Island, and I'm listening to the radio and I hear Mandisa, and I'm not knocking Mandisa, okay, but I don't really listen to her a lot, but the song caught my eye, and it was talking about unfinished business, and I was like, boom, all right, this is great, this is a great topic, I'm going to say it for you Sunday. And then I started talking to Dad. I was like, hey man, do you have a series that you're doing next? And he's like, no, I haven't really thought about it just yet. I was like, well, what if we talk about this? And then we went back and forth for probably a little over a month or so, just going over the details and getting down to the nitty gritty of all these different things. And then he had the idea of doing it like building a house. And I was like, man, that is so good. So after time, the way that God was working in our hearts and in this, it's really lit a kind of a fire in me to work on the details of my own heart. Because I'm not standing up here saying that I'm perfect, because I'm not. Anybody who knows me closely knows that for a fact. But with a community, we have to be able to go to each other. We have to be able to talk with others about issues that we don't, I don't know, just being honest, I don't know if I feel comfortable or not going to some people in the church about some of the issues that I have in my own life. And I don't want that. I want to be able to, and maybe some people feel the same way about me, where they can't come to me. And I don't want that. I want us to be able to be a community where the deepest hurts of our lives, the deepest issues, the deepest cracks in our foundation, that we can address it, we can talk with people about it, knowing that they are going to point us to that ultimate builder, point us to a way where we can fix that problem for good. In closing, we need strong, wise, prayerful, and supportive people in our church. Right? We need passionate, selfless, and active people in our church, all the same. Whether you're old, whether you're young, whether you just had a baby, we need them active too. We need everybody in this church working together, just like a construction company, building up this church, building up the individuals, because where one person succeeds, somebody else may fail. Where that person may succeed, that other person may not be as strong. So we need to work together to build a community to the point where we're saying, yes, God, your blueprint, your way, your time. If the musicians come up, singers, I think we have a song that we're going to finish with, but you guys are getting out early. That's a long-winded guy. But my challenge for you guys today is just to be at the point where you're looking at God and saying, God, I want that home around my heart. I want where people are looking at my life and not seeing me, not seeing this gigantic facade that I'm putting up, but a heart that is well constructed in you. So I'm going to pray, and then you guys can do the show. Father God, we come to you today. I thank you so much just for this opportunity and so much just for the message that you've given me. If it doesn't speak to anybody else here, you were speaking to me directly, and I appreciate that so much, because there's so many times where we fill our houses and our hearts with so much stuff that doesn't need to be there, that we get lost and we get distracted and we get caught up in the keeping up with the Joneses per se. Lord, I just pray that you would empty our hearts, empty the things that don't need to be there, fix our foundational issues, fix every little detail in our hearts where we tried to DIY it and it just didn't come out the way that we had expected. Lord, help us understand your blueprint going in our lives, and just be with us the rest of this day. And we pray. Amen.
We have a special announcement to make, and this is wonderful. Caleb was talking about the community and our church and being a family. Then we sung that song there at the end. You know, all things happen for a reason, and God has a purpose for it. And that song wasn't even planned, was it? That last song, kind of. Okay, kind of. But the thing is, that it goes right along with what we're about ready to announce. And so I'm going to ask the Beck family if they'll come up. Miss Kate, can we get her? Okay. Pastor Beck and Robin, they've been a part of our community for quite some time. And Pastor Beck is a retired Methodist pastor. Matter of fact, our paths crossed each other at one time when he was at Dartown, in the Methodist church there, in his last year, I think it was there, and it was my first year in Dartown at the Baptist church. And we were like right across the street from one another. Though we never met each other during that time, I think it was pretty neat how God brought us together here at Emmanuel Baptist Church. And they've been a part of this family for quite some time. And we are so thankful to have them in this church. But they have been, I'll let them make the announcement to you. I'm not going to steal their thunder because this is so exciting. It is, it's so exciting. I'm trying to save some time here so we can... Okay, she says she can take over. All right.
God has been working so... What? Oh, you may sit down. You don't have to stand up.
You'll stand up.
God has been working so faithfully in our lives, and we wanted to announce it to you because you've been so supportive and loving of us. As you know, we've raised this little girl since she was a baby, but we've only had legal custody. And God has been working so faithfully. We've been through so much stress in the last few months, but Leslie, will you come up? Leslie has been praying for us so much. I was hoping Kaylee was going to be here, but she loves King's Kids, so she took off to go down there. Anyway, I will go. Kaylee, come on, sweetie. If she's late for Sunday school or she can't get to King's Kids, she's so upset. But I want to let you know what your prayers have done for us, because this little girl who has been Kaylee Cheyenne Shannon since we've had her as a baby is now going to legally be our adopted daughter. And what your name is?
Kaylee Cheyenne Shannon Beck.
I just wanted to share that with you because sometime I want to write everything down about our journey because it's been an amazing one. But your prayers have been so important to us. And we have loved her since she was a baby, but we couldn't be more happy now. And we sat before Judge Rogers last week, and the papers were signed for her adoption. So thank you so much. And Leslie and Mike, we thank you so much. We wanted you to be a person.